So I recently began rereading the book Buddha's Brain. How many have read Buddha's Brain? Well, it's a very enlightening book about neuroscience and the things we're discovering in research about the brain. And this morning I have some good news and I have some not so good news. The not so good news is that the brain research is showing that our human brains record, recall, sort, and respond to negative experiences preferentially to positive experiences. Yuck. They say in the book that our human brains are like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon to positive experiences. And that there's a reason for that, because through the process of evolution, our brains have evolved somewhat, and but because of evolutionary process, our brains respond to those scary experiences, those negative experiences, in order to help keep us safe. It's part of the evolutionary process, and so it's just part of the process. The good news is that our brains are continuing to evolve, and the better news is that we can help affect how our brains evolve. That one factor in how our brains continue to evolve, and this thing called neuroplasticity, I've learned all these great terms, that the brain does continue to change, and it shapes, and it continues to form, and it's not just a static thing. And that one of the factors involved in how the brain forms is the activity of the mind. That the activity of the mind helps to shape and form the brain and helps to affect the activity of the brain. How the synapses fire, and which synapses fire, and which neurotransmitters are released, and all of that in the way that the brain works. Now, when we're talking about the mind, very often we think about thinking, just thoughts. But when we're talking about the mind, what I want to say is, in a nutshell, that the mind is not just mental activity, not just thinking, but it's also the energy of feeling. When we're talking about the activity of mind, then we're talking about our thinking and our feeling. In a nutshell, that's very simplified, but that's where I want to sort of talk about today. The mental activity can help to shape the brain, which then shapes the mind, which then helps to affect the body. So it's all related. Well, I've got some more good news and some more not so good news for you about that. The not so good news is that the brain is continuing to shape itself and form itself based on those negative experiences that are primarily, very often, subconscious, where they're happening at a subconscious level. Well, the good news is that we can make them conscious, that we have the power to change, to decide, to come into the awareness of what is going on in there, so that we can choose differently. So we have the ability to change the mental activity that's going on. Our feeling nature, our thinking nature, thus change the brain, thus change the activity of the brain, thus impact the body. And I know that's not news to any of you, because that's what we teach, isn't it? It's what New Thought has been teaching. And I think that as I've been reading and as I've been studying and as I've been reading this book and taking it in, and it doesn't come as any surprise to any of you, but I am not an intellectual. I'm sure that does not come as any surprise to you. And it's given me a great sense of appreciation, even a more expanded sense of an appreciation for what we teach. And as I thought about that, and I thought about in the spirit of thanksgiving and gratitude, to really allow myself to feel that appreciation, the gratitude for the people who are part of that. And what came to me about that is that, first of all, New Thought, there's nothing new about it. You understand that, right? There's absolutely nothing new about it. That the New Thought movement sprung up as a response to the whole mental healing movement that came into the United States in the mid-1800s. But it wasn't new because Eastern traditions have known this for centuries prior to it coming into this New Thought movement. You know, the Buddhist and the Hindu and the Taoist and the Sikhs and the people who practiced these spiritual practices of meditation and mindfulness and breathing and some of the things that Dr. Pete Stutz shared with us yesterday, the working with the chakra system and the energy of the body and all of these things that the Eastern traditions knew. Now, they didn't have the scientific equipment to measure it or to try to affirm or try to explain why it was working. They just knew it was working. And they experienced the effects of it. The peace of mind and the peace of heart and the love and the physical healings that occurred from it. And then the movement in the United States, which is the New Thought movement, again, I'm not trying to give you a lesson in New Thought, but I want to share with you my deep appreciation for the people who were so instrumental in helping us and bringing this teaching into this country. Mary Baker Eddy, who was really at the forefront of New Thought in the United States. She was the founder of Christian Science. And Mary Baker Eddy experienced her own healing. And Mary Baker Eddy then said, she took it to, Christianity, and she believed that this is what Jesus taught. She believed that Jesus healed people through the power of working with energy and claiming life. She often said, life is all there is. There was only life, and Jesus knew that, and that's how Jesus was able to do the things that he did. So she married this science and Christianity, and she formed Christian Science. What a great legacy. I mean, imagine a woman in the mid-1800s taking this on and starting a new church, a new religion, so to speak, a new movement in the United States. Such great appreciation, gratitude for her and her legacy. And then Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founders of Unity, were students of one of Mary Baker Eddy's prize students, Emma Curtis Hopkins. And so out of all of that came the movement. Also Divine Science with Melinda Kramer and Nona Brooks and Ernest Holmes and religious science. And the teaching that we have the power to change the activity of the mind, the thoughts that we think, the feelings that we feel. Thus, we change the brain. And by changing the way the brain works, we change the way the body works. And working with energy, breath, and meditation, and mindfulness, and all of those things that we teach and that we promote changes us at a very deep level. And I'm very grateful for that teaching. And that's a long way around to get to where I want to go today, and that is the power of gratitude. Because we know that gratitude, choosing thoughts of gratitude, choosing to be in the feeling nature of gratitude, choosing to express appreciation, changes the mental activity, changes the thoughts, changes what we're feeling, changes our mind, and then changes the body. So gratitude is very important to us, I think, in not only just expressing it and feeling it and having one day a year to celebrate Thanksgiving, but it's important for us to understand, I think, the power of gratitude and to practice gratitude on a daily basis. And I think I want to just share with you 3 ways that I see that we can do that. One is that we actively seek something to be grateful for. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get in the habit of looking at the glass half empty. Or I look at what's not going right. Or I look at the things I don't have rather than the things I do have. And so I think practicing, actively looking for the good, looking for what is going right, looking for what we do have and appreciating what we do have rather than what we don't have. I think that's one practice we can engage in that will change the way we feel, will change the way we think, and will change our brains and change our bodies, change our whole experience. Looking for the good, it's all around us. Sometimes I think we take it for granted. I know I take it for granted sometimes. I mean, even, just seeing those boys up here with their love and their care. James had the idea to write notes and to share them with other people. It was his idea that he came up with. You may not have been able to understand everything he was saying, but that's what he was saying. That there are pieces of paper, and they want you to write notes, positive notes, and they'll share them with other people. And to see the love and the joy and the smile on their faces, to be able to do that and to give. What a great thing to appreciate. For me to just stop and just appreciate. To appreciate the beautiful sunny sky and the warmth. And even to appreciate the snow. But really actively look for things to appreciate. And the other thing that we can do is to actually allow ourselves to experience the gratitude. As I said earlier, our brains actively look for the negative. And so what happens is, I think, that when we experience something that we might call negative, we kind of can dwell on it. Have you noticed? We sort of dwell on it. Especially if somebody hurts our feelings or somebody says something that we don't like, we want to tell everybody about it, don't we? We tend to extend our negativity, our feeling, our hurt, our pain, and we want other people to buy into it. And so that's our tendency. Not everyone's, but that is our tendency. And when something good happens, sometimes we just feel it and then just let it go. We have a feeling of experience, we have a grateful experience, we feel joy, we feel gratitude, and then we go on to something else. What I want to suggest to us is that when something like that occurs to us, even like the boys up here and the great appreciation and the joy, rather than just feeling it in the moment, Really feel it. Allow ourselves to feel the good. Not to just let it flow on by, but to savor it. To savor the beautiful sky. To stop for a few minutes, not even a few minutes, even a few seconds, and just allow ourselves to dwell in the joy and the gratitude and the appreciation. What happens when we do that, what neuroscience is showing, is that when we do that, we change our brain incrementally, we change our mind incrementally. So not only are we enjoying the joy of the moment, but we are creating the opportunity to experience future moments that are even exponentially joyous. So feel it, look for the good, and then feel it, savor it. And then not only savor it, but magnify it. Magnify the good in your life. We have the power of imagination. It's one of our 12 powers that Charles Fillmore discerned. One of our powers is imagination. When you have something good that happens in your life, use your power of imagination to magnify it. We're really good at awfulizing sometimes. How bad can it get? What if instead we ask, how good can it get? And use our power of imagination to imagine how good it can get. To really magnify the good in our lives. Can you imagine what that would feel like? Just going outside this morning, beautiful, crisp morning, seeing the blue sky and the sunshine, and just taking a moment to savor that. And then to magnify it. What it feels like to savor and to explore and to magnify the feelings of gratitude and appreciation. And through that, incrementally, we not only change our experience, but we change the very thing that's inside our bodies that works the body. And for most of us, it is a process. It happens gradually. That's why we call it spiritual practice. It requires our willingness to practice it, to do it, to engage in those practices of meditation, to quiet the mind, feel the stillness, to breathe deeply and to center ourselves in the peace, in the moment. To practice mindfulness, where we're just willing to be aware, just stepping back and noticing, not being so caught up in the mental activity or the feeling nature, but becoming that witness of it. What's going on in my mind right now? What am I feeling right now? And I want to say, too, that I'm not suggesting that we ignore the things that we might see as negative. Because things happen. And as I've said before, I think it's important to be present in whatever's happening. And I think it's important to not be consumed by it or controlled by it. It doesn't define us. And we have the power to choose. That is the great gift, I think, of our teaching. It doesn't mean that it is magic. It doesn't mean that it's instantaneous or miraculous in some way, depending on what you define as a miracle. but it is a practice of coming into our awareness and being present for it. I love the legacy of Mary Baker Eddy, even though I don't know all there is to know about Christian Science. But I love that she married Christianity, the teachings of Jesus Christ, and the science of mental healing. I love that legacy. I appreciate her so much for that legacy. Because I too believe we teach that Jesus Christ was a master teacher. He was a master. He was, as they called him, a rabbi, a teacher. In some traditions, he probably would have been called a guru. He was teaching. He was giving, transmitting, sharing His light, His energy, His wisdom, His knowing. And as Paul said in Philippians, his letter to the Philippians, let the mind that was in Christ Jesus be your mind now. Do you hear that? Can you imagine that? Can you really imagine that? That the mind that was in Christ Jesus is my mind now? I believe that's what He was here to teach us, to impart to us. Similarly to other teachers in great traditions, spiritual traditions. So I invite us now just to say that together, affirming together, the mind that was in Christ Jesus is my mind now. Only if you're comfortable saying that together. The mind that was in Christ Jesus is my mind now. Feel that. Again, let's say it together. The mind that was in Christ Jesus is my mind now. Feel that once again. And let's say it one more time. The mind that was in Christ Jesus is my mind now. Embrace that. Allow that. The mind of unity. The mind of oneness with the source of all that is. The one power, the one presence. The source and I, the Father and I are one. As we know that, as we think that, as we claim that, feel that. Feel that energy. And feel, you can feel, just imagine and feel that awareness is transforming your brain. Feel the energy of that awareness transforming your brain right now. Different synapses are firing in your brain, wiring together, forming new neural pathways in the awareness of the Christ energy. The mind that was in Christ Jesus is my mind now. I claim that. I own that. I know that. And in that knowing, in that awareness, I am transformed. Moment by moment by moment. Moment by moment, thought by thought, feeling by feeling, step by step, I am transformed as I make a conscious choice to change my mind, to choose new thoughts, to savor appreciation and gratitude. I am transformed at depth. And I become, as Paul said once again, a new creature in Christ. I become transformed through my willingness to change my mind and embrace the truth. And so I just encourage us today to think new thoughts, to enter that space of gratitude, to look for the good, to truly allow yourself to experience the good, and to even magnify the good in your life. Because in that way, we are transformed.